So Jonathan, what are the main challenges and problems that businesses encounter when they start to create and carry out a robust information protection program?
Well, really we're seeing a couple of main challenges. And for me, I think the biggest one is getting the balance between information protection and people actually doing their job. So implementing a lot of the security controls is actually quite straightforward. Putting them in place and getting them in is the easy part. The hard part is making sure that they're not impacting people's work. They're not stopping people from doing their job. That's the difficult part of it. The other biggest challenge we're seeing is that people assume that these information protection breaches and the negative aspects, that they're coming from sort of bad actors the whole time. So what we're actually seeing is that 2 in 3 of the information protection breaches are actually coming from people just by accident, doing things that they weren't aware of that were bad, or just not having the right controls around them. So instead of putting controls in that help their employees, they're trying to sort of hinder them and actually trying to stop them doing from the work.
And that will then end up making people go towards shadow IT because they're trying to get around the controls or the changes required.
Exactly. So people start to see security as the bad guy and try to avoid them rather than seeing them as someone to help them do their job and help doing it correctly.
So how exactly do you protect information?
Well, I mean, the easiest way to protect information is to just put it in a box and lock it away. But obviously that's not going to work. It shuts down the businesses. It means that people can't do their job. It doesn't work like that. So for us, what we need to do is go in and we need to understand what businesses are doing. We need to understand their processes. We need to understand how they're moving data, where they're storing data. We need to understand what they want to do and the stuff that they don't need to do. So there's a couple of ways we want to do this. The first way is that we want to bring in people into this. So we want to build that awareness. We want to sort of have these people understanding what their data is and understanding the controls and different aspects around that. And really the outcome of that is to be a security appreciation. We want them to know what security are trying to do and sort of appreciate where we're coming from with that. And what we want to do is sort of bring in regular training so that when they do appreciate security, we help them sort of along the path and along that journey, no matter how long that goes on for. And the next way we do that is to start bringing in the tools and processes. So assessing what the information is, assessing where is it stored and where the information is moving, and then conducting a sort of risk assessment, figuring out where the areas are that need to be protected and figuring out where those controls need to be placed and applying them across the system. So we've got the people's buy-in, we've got the users' buy-in, helping them guide where they put that sensitive data. And then following that up, implementing a bit of a disaster recovery plan. So helping the business to achieve that continuity, even if the worst was to happen, even if there was a breach.
You talk about a lot of different places and about the data and information, but what information can you protect? Where might that information be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, there's a few different areas where we've seen that sensitive information lies. The classic one is in people's emails. People sending that out and storing it there is a classic place for the information. But it can be places such as databases. The company probably has their own databases that they hold a lot of information in. And then there's things like SharePoint, your file storage, and this can be on the cloud, this can be on-prem. And this is where we're seeing a lot of the sensitive information, even sensitive information that the company doesn't even know they have.
So what are consequences of the do-nothing approach, of not protecting information?
Yeah, so when you look at information protection breaches, just like any security breach, there's a whole wave of consequences that come from doing nothing. I think one of the good stats for this is looking at the costs that information protection breaches cost companies in 2022 was 15.38 million. You can see that it's such a huge amount for a business to spend. It's easy to think of information protection as just a privacy concern. It can be sort of seen as something that you're just protecting people's privacy data, addresses, something like this. But for many companies, their privacy or their data is their value. If you think of something like Coca-Cola's recipe, for instance, if that was breached and that data was leaked, it would do a big cost to the business and a big cost to their reputation. So you can see it's quite a big area for concern. Not only that, but it also involves the privacy concerns, it can involve things like identity theft, financial fraud, and corporate espionage. So the information protection is quite a vast area where it needs to protect. On top of that, there's also the legal and financial penalties that come with it. So with things like GDPR being even more important into our daily lives, these kind of impacts and financial costs to businesses is getting bigger and bigger. So this needs to be considered when we're addressing what approach we're doing for information protection.